Okay, as you know, a while back I did a video on the restoration of this rather lovely Empire long-boarded Model 62, and if you've seen that video you'll know that this engine was missing all sorts of parts, but crucial to the restoration was the flywheel and crankshaft, and I had no way of casting a flywheel for it, but I was very lucky in the fact that my good friend Stewart Owens in the States happened to have some spare parts, and I got in touch with him and he sent me this flywheel and the crankshaft. So I was like, you know, this is a genuine Empire flywheel and crankshaft. Now in the packet that Stuart sent me from the States with the flywheel and crankshaft for the Empire engine I was restoring, there was another flywheel and crankshaft, which is this one here, and this engine mount. Now I've cleaned these up. This was painted red originally, and there was obviously red paint on the flywheel. I've just given them a going over with a wire brush. And anyway, they sat on the shelf, and I kept looking at them, and I was thinking, oh, I wonder if I could actually make the parts that are missing to actually get this into a working engine. Well, being me, of course, I did the easy bit first, so I got a couple of bits of brass bar to act as engine mounts, and I happened to have some scrap mahogany lying around, which would make a nice base for it. So that's that bit done. But there's an awful lot to make with one of these, so we'll go through it bit by bit. Now, on a standard B-30, this engine frame would be bolted directly to the boiler and the steam would come up through here, directly out of the boiler and into the cylinder through this machined way here. So obviously I've got to get steam into it somehow, so I decided to make an adapter which will screw in there, which will be our feed in. Then we have this blanking screw which will block off here, and then we have this adapter here which mounts, is part of the mount for the engine, but obviously it has to be narrow enough here to allow the air or steam to come through there and down there. So that will go in there like that, and this will go on the end like that. Anyway, that's the theory. So we got our inlet, and this is now all sealed off. So the next thing to tackle is this hole here would have one of these in it. Now this is, believe it or not, this is actually quite fiddly to make this. This is the regulator valve, and that sits in there. That's a tapered hole, and that sits in there like that. There's had a spring and a washer underneath it to hold it in place, and that's how you literally regulate the steam flow. So yeah, that was tricky to make, to put it mildly. Okay, so next up was the con rod on the piston. I mean, I'm very lucky when it comes to making parts like this, because obviously I have an Empire B-30, so I've got all the bits that I need to copy, and you know, it makes it a lot easier when you've actually got bits you can measure to get all the right length. So there's con rod and piston, and finally the last parts will be the piston valve, the eccentric strap, and the eccentric. Again, there was quite a bit of work in making the eccentric. You know, this is it's quite difficult to make that, but we got there in the end. And also the actual piston valve itself is an interesting design on these. And yes, those holes are deliberately offset. That is how they are on the actual piston valve. So yeah, that's all the parts. So let's put it together. Well, here's the finished item. I really like making things like this. When you get a collection of parts, I like making model engines from spare parts. It's just, okay, I find it very satisfying when you've got something which is just a part or a couple of parts, and then with a little bit of effort I mean, you know, obviously I couldn't do this without the lathe. I mean, the Walker W180 is absolutely brilliant. This is, you know, without that I wouldn't be able to make these parts. But, you know, with a bit of effort and some scrap material, you can create something like this, which, you know, gives it purpose, which is, you know, it's okay, it's not on a boiler and it's not exactly as a B-30 engine is meant to be, but it should still run. So let's see if it does. Okay, I've got it connected up to my little air compressor, which, must admit, doesn't actually provide a lot of puff, but it should be enough to run this. Yes, there we go, look at that. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. That worked very well indeed. I just feel so much better having this as a working engine, even though it's not really a B-30 because it's just the engine and no boiler. But it's running. When you consider that the only original parts on here are the flywheel, the crankshaft, and the engine block, the cylinder casting. So, no, I'm really pleased with that. And also, again, a big thank you to my friend Stewart Owens for actually providing me with this engine casting and the flywheel. And hopefully he will be as pleased as I am to see it brought back to life. So there you go. Quick little video on making a working engine out of some old parts. And very satisfying it is too to do this sort of thing. So hope you enjoyed this little video on the resurrected Empire B-30 engine. Thanks very much for watching. Cheers.